I am going to try to do something that people who know me have asked me to do for probably 7 years. And what the ask was for me to explain how I think about personal finance, careers, skill sets, jobs, professional development, personal development, and how I arrived at where I am today. So, with this first video, I want to go back to the initial prompting for me to start to think differently about how we earn money, how we define our ability to earn money, how we only see certain avenues as a means of earning money. And so that's where I'll start. When I went to college at 18, I'm not 18 now, I'm way past that, even though I don't look it. I wanted to be something in the healthcare space. And the reason I chose that was because my sister died when I was 15 years old. She died from biliary atresia. She was born with it. It is a liver defect. She was born without bile ducts. And basically, that started my life journey. I did not know it until about 2 years ago, almost three in October. But I've basically been living a life of grief. And the reason why I'm being transparent is because I think that uh, a lot of people are navigating their lives based on what they experienced in their childhood or early adulthood, or what their parents or their aunts and uncles and cousins and grandmothers and grandparents. So, what I mean by that is a lot of people seek therapy for their struggles. And then when you start to untangle the struggle, you begin to realize that a lot of the struggle is not centered around self. The struggle is centered around our inability to center ourselves. If that's not you, that is fine. I'm speaking to a specific person. So, back to my sister passing when I was 15. From age 15 to 18, it was a blur. I don't remember high school, very much of it. I didn't socialize with people very often. The only activities I did were marching band. Uh, Actually, the day that she passed was supposed to be basketball tryouts for the start of sophomore year of high school. I showed up an hour late, and I remember the coach. I texted one former friend to tell her that my sister passed, and I asked her to tell the coach. And the coach was, some people they're very forward, they're very direct, and emotionally, depending on where you are, it may be inappropriate. But I also didn't have the words to explain what had happened to me that morning when I woke up. So the coach said, "Well, why are you late? It's not a good example to be late. Yesterday you were doing great. You were hitting all your shots and this, and this. And I thought you were going to be, some top runner, blah, blah. But today you're more than an hour late." And I stared at her and this is how I respond. My sister died this morning, but thanks. Noted. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." So, one of the things that I've learned, and my parents, the reason why they took me to practice was because they wanted me to understand that you may be experiencing the biggest life shifting moment of your life. For someone else, it's just another day. And so that experience taught me that regardless to what happened that morning, I had to continue. And again, that's how I internalized it. That is how I began to live. And I will say, really, it wasn't living, it was merely existing. So, on this channel, when you hear me talk about lifestyle sustainability and soft retirement, what I'm really talking about is our ability to live, not exist, live, to do things because it's really what we want to do and it's what we need to do. Sometimes what we need or want to do has to incorporate others, but most of my last 7 years of life have been me detaching from what others want me to do and what I want to do for myself. So the rest of that day, again, a blur. I don't remember. I remember shooting the basketball. I remember then the coach telling me I didn't have to come, and I basically looked at her and said, "Well, I asked someone to tell you what happened because I don't have your number. Obviously, based on your reaction when I got here, they did not share with you what happened. I mean, literally, everybody was just staring at me when I walked in the door, like, why are you here?" And what that has resulted in for me personally is a life of um, being unwilling to share with people, especially people in authority, so managers, advisors, when I actually really truly am experiencing something that requires me to take a break, getting that misconstrued with whether I'm being lazy or not a self starter, right? People often use these labels to explain people because, as in American society, I don't know where every other country what they do, but it is very much so work and job focused. We pay you, you should be here. And yes, there are some companies that they care about what happens in your personal life, but ultimately, you really and truly are a number. So, the day my sister died set the tone for my life journey up until this point. It's been recently that I've recognized that there are so many things because I lost my sister that I did as a result of that or did not do as a result of that. Their sibling loss, sibling grief is understudied. There's not a lot of resources. If you go to therapy, counselor, whoever about it, because grief is like this, grief is a lifelong process, okay? It never stops. It is always present. And the times of my life when it's been the most present is where I've noticed that maybe I should be celebrating that I just graduated from high school. Maybe I should be celebrating that I got a full academic ride to college. I should be celebrating that I graduated with my bachelor's in biochemistry and I had a National Science Foundation fellowship for 2 years. I should be celebrating that I received a master's degree in biology and I actually was really good in lab. I didn't celebrate any of those things. They were check boxes, they were tasks, they were things that I knew that I had to do if I wanted to get to a place where I was taking care of myself and not relying on my parents. And so my parents are older. My mom's 69, my dad's 82. They had me when they were 35 and 48, just about. So you do the math on how old I am. But what I had to figure out for myself was um, I'm not technically the only child, but I was raised like an only child. My sister was 8 years older than me. And so she also was kind of like a blueprint or for me an idea of what I should be doing or how to do certain things because my mom's guidance style is not to tell me like career wise, money making wise, what to do. With my sister, the way I picked my college degree, I told you in the beginning that I wanted to initially do something in healthcare. It was because she wanted to do something biology related. She initially wanted to be a vet. By the time she was starting to pass away officially, I told you she was dying from the time she was born, but officially at the age of 23, she'd gotten accepted into nursing school, and that's what she was going to do. Um, so initially, my age 15 to 18, I thought I was going to do nursing. I went to an internship my freshman year of uh, undergrad. And this is again like an example of how you don't know that grief is doing something to you. Um, it was called SMDP, Summer Medical Dental Enrichment Program. Look it up. I don't know if they're still operating or not, but it was hosted at several universities in conjunction with a lot of medical schools, dental schools. So they would bring students up. They had a curriculum. You took like physics, math, blah, blah. whatever the curriculum was for you to be prepared to take the MCAT, because the ultimate goal was for you to go into dental medical school. It might have been even pharmacy, I don't know, but a lot of those folks became medical doctors. So the first day, the first few weeks, I was really into it. I really loved it. Then they said, and I did not know this before I signed up, they said, we're going to be working on cadavers. And, you know, for some reason, I don't know why. Again, this is when you're age 18, 19, and you're operating on autopilot because of grief. And I will pause there and say, apparently when my sister passed, my mom asked me if I wanted to go to grief therapy or grief counseling, and I told her no. And to show you how much of a beast grief is, I don't remember this conversation. I remember a lot of conversations, don't remember anything around my mom trying to get me support for what it was I had just experienced. So back to New Jersey experience. I'm there. I'm from Midwest, so middle of the country. So I'm out there without my parents, without family. And they said, we're going to work on cadavers. And I'm like, cadavers? Like, what is going on here? How did I get here? Like, I thought we were doing like college prep readiness for medical school and testing and stuff like this. No, the cadaver was out. And I didn't know it then, but now I know the word like trigger, right? Trauma. The cadaver was out, the face was covered, whatever, and other students were in there. And you know how some people are, they make jokes. So someone was making jokes about the cadaver. Other people were like, I want to see the genitalia, you know, just all these things that it was a lot. So I remember I didn't want to cut the cadaver. I refused. By the way, I had done anatomy in high school, so we dissected a cat. I did fine with it. But a human body, oh, it was like total shutdown. And so remember when I explained about the day my sister passed, where I couldn't communicate to that coach what it was I was feeling, experiencing, thinking. I just received how she was interpreting me and my lateness. So because I was what I now know to be triggered about people making jokes about the bodies, what they could have, should have been, how they probably lived or didn't based on how they looked and all this stuff, I didn't cut the body. I held the cadaver's hand. I peacefully named him in my head, and I just refused to participate. And so, and I'm not blaming these folks, okay? What those medical students who were helping lead the program thought was that I wasn't motivated. I wasn't a self starter. I was disinterested, blah, 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 blah. When in actuality, I was experiencing what I woke up to the day my sister passed. Not exactly, obviously, my sister's body was not being cut open, but I was experiencing a flashback of that day, June 6, 2005. And I had no idea. I had no words for it. What I did have was anger. So when I mentioned about the grief process, it's not a linear process. There are no step 1, 2, and 3. You don't feel these things in a set pattern or a rhyme or reason, but you feel them. And sometimes you feel them when you least expect it. And I had no expectation for a place where I had prepared to go and just put my head in the books and regurgitate information and apply it where applicable, which is what I love. I like to read. I like to write. That is not what I experienced. What I experienced instead was, in another example at that internship, the dental students, we had to go on the dental rotation side. The dental students, there was a young Black girl. She was crying. She had an abscess. And they all were just talking amongst themselves about what they thought was going on, this, and this. And the girl's just bawling. I mean, she's bawling. I go over, I grab tissue, I give her the tissue. She stops shaking and crying, and she's like, thank you so much. And I said, you're welcome. And I stood there, held her hand. They're looking at me, I'm looking at them like humanity, compassion. And so again, this is 2009. I don't know if the healthcare space has changed since then, but it was such a turnoff for me. It was it kind of like added to the trauma. So Honest to God, I don't go to the doctor. I know that's so freaking crazy to say, but example, I have a recurring cyst. My next door neighbor happens to be a physician assistant, and I happen to trust him. He's been living next door since I was 11 years old. So guess what? I go to him to be treated, like to for him to look at it and tell me, girl, that's urgent care, girl, that's ER, girl, that's surgery type of thing. I refuse to go to the doctor because that was the experience from people who were training to be in the profession. And then also at the age of 18, my own childhood doctor he was doing a thing about another trauma that I have. We won't go into that, but it was like, I don't like this space. So the reason I'm telling this story is because very much so my grief informed my internal capacity to participate in the world. I could not talk to people about the emotions I was having because the emotion to me did not relate to what I was actually experiencing. It was like I was flashing back and seeing things. It's like, how do you explain to somebody about flashbacks? So, long story short, um, I did go into a PhD program, and in that PhD program, it was something similar happening. But on that end, it was more so related to some physical and verbal abuse that I endured from my master's advisor. Again, I have no words for these things. The hits just keep coming. And I merely understand that my choice of navigation looks like to opt out. So that's the thing. I opted out of participating with those cadavers in the classroom and the people because of what it was that I was experiencing. The way my brain processed it was they were callous, they were rude, they were harsh, they were disconnected. And here I am now understanding that I have become overly empathetic because of my sister going to the doctor for her entire life, which was my entire life. So she was 23 when she passed. So that was 15 years of my life of in and out the doctor, in and out the hospital, in and out the surgery. Some of her last words to me were, I am tired of being a lab rat. And so the irony of that statement is that at 19, I started working in a lab. I started doing lab research. And the craziest part about it is that's where I felt safest. One, I felt like if I wanted to do medical research, maybe I could do it to help people who suffered from biliary atresia. Two, maybe I could save someone else's sibling or parent or cousin, aunt, uncle from enduring what it was I know I experienced as a loss of my sister. And three, I ended up being really happy in the lab because this is a stroke of luck. I actually ended up doing plant research because I was trying to find a way after that summer experience with the cadavers to get out of medicine and go back into something else that I knew, which was plants. My grandparents had a huge garden. They like fed the community. They loved being outside. My grandfather was a hunter. So all of the outdoors. It's one of the things that the summer before grad school, I used to go out every day and be in the garden with them. And the plant research basically fell into my lap. Plant research, honestly and oddly enough, was actually my means of running away from experiencing my grief process. So I will leave it there. In the next videos, I have no idea what I'll discuss. I actually didn't even plan on telling you all of that level of business. But it does, again, lead into how I've become more of myself, even when I didn't want to, how it has created income for me, income flexibility. I think about work differently. And because of my sister's passing, I determined early on for me that time was more important than money, but getting more money as soon as possible would increase the amount of time that I had to spend with my loved ones. So, thanks for listening, and I will see you on the next one.